Hey guys, this is Gene Jensen. It is time for my MTB Slam for the month of May. I've got the Pro Box this month. Kind of looks a little different. It's got a little bit of a different logo on there. But I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna take a look at everything that's in the box. I'm gonna put them on rods and I'm gonna teach you how to fish everything that's in the box. And I'm gonna try to catch a couple of fish along the way. What Mystery Tackle Box is, it's a subscription-based product, and for $15 a month you get a small box. I used to have one in the boat, I don't have it anymore. Get a small box that's got baits worth between $25 and $30, and then the Pro Box for $9.99 more, so basically $10 more, you get a box of baits that's typically worth between $40 and $50, or $35 and $50. I'm not sure how much, but anyway, I'm gonna open it up, I'm gonna pull out the card, we're gonna talk about it. One of the cool things they got going on right now, or this month, is you look at the box, is really different. They got a catch and win contest going on. It's an Instagram contest. Catch a keeper, this is your limits. Bass is 14 inches. Catch a keeper, lay it on here, take a picture of it, put it on Instagram, hashtag it MTB Keeper, and you're entered into a contest to win some pretty cool prizes. I don't know what the prizes are. You'll have to check their website. But anyway, so jump right into the box. Let me find the little card. Here it is. Now, for the very first thing, you've got a Sammie 85, which is one of my favorite topwater baits. It's a Lucky Craft. You don't hear much about Lucky Craft anymore, but nice color, good color for what's going on right now. We got post-spawn conditions. The shad should be spawning. And then that one's worth $15.99. The next one is the Boss Pop, which is a popper from Booyah, and it is $7.99. It looks like this box was set up for shad spawn. And then the Lucky Shad from Strike King, which is probably one of my favorite shad imitators for a crankbait if they're a little bit deeper. Good color, chartreuse shad. That one's $6.99. And then the Smart Bomb by Smart Baits, $4.99. Let's see if I can find it. Smart Bomb. Oh, is that what it's called? The Smart Bomb? Yep. Looks like a Cinco. It somehow changes colors. Activated by water temperature, smart baits, soft baits undergo multiple color changes and imitate live bleeding prey fish that will trigger fish to strike. Okay. That one is $4.99. The Rad Shad from Bruiser Baits is $4.50. It's a kind of a fluke style bait, swim bait or something. I've never fished that color. Okay. And then Red Alert Hook Assortment from Standout. Okay, so that's a drop shot hook. I'm not going to be drop shotting today, so I won't be using this one. There's nothing in the box that really I would drop shot. Maybe the color changing thing, but I'm going to do something different with that. All right, so let's put everything on a rod, and I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to fish the rest of the day, try to catch fish on this, and teach you everything that I know about the box, or about the baits in the box. All right, so the very first bait I'm going to pull out is going to be something I can move and cover a lot of water with, especially first thing in the morning during a shad spawn like we're on right now. I'm going to pull out something like a Sammie or a popper or a spinner bait or things like that. And the Sammie is a walking bait. They call it walking the dog is the way you fish it. There's a few keys to that. You got to have a good rod. It's a medium moderate action rod is what I like to fish it on, or a medium fast action rod will work too, but a medium moderate action is really good for this kind of a stuff. But more importantly than that, you've got to have floating line. If you start to use fluorocarbon, it's going to pull your bait down as you're working it. So I've got, what do I have on here? 15-pound Rippin monofilament by Seagar. It's their new monofilament that I'm testing out. And a 7:3 to 1 gear ratio reel. And the speed of the reel really doesn't matter. It just all depends on your preference on this one. But that's the gear. That's the gear that I'm going to be fishing it with. Now, a lot of people ask, or a lot of people are having an issue with walking the dog on walking baits. Now, small baits are really difficult to do that with. So this 80 is going to be a little bit tough. I'd start off with a bigger bait. like the larger sizes. And but anyway, you throw it out, and it's like tapping a drum. You're gonna tap, and when you hit a drum, you don't hit the drum and leave the drumstick on the drum. You tap it and bring it right back up. And that's basically what you're doing with the rod. It's a tap, 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 and I'm just popping and going right back to a slack line. And as you do that, you'll find that that bait will zigzag back and forth, boom, 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 boom. And the longer the bait, the easier it is to do that. You get those short baits, topwater frogs, this kind of stuff like that, and it's less of a pop that you have to do with your rod. And so you really have to work it good. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cover water. And the key thing to this is once you get bit, I mean, the fish will blow up on it. Give it a couple of seconds. So that you got to get it in your head. You're like, okay, bam, 1,000, 2, 1,000, set the hook. You don't just set the hook immediately, because a lot of times you're going to miss that fish. That fish doesn't get the bait in its mouth good enough to start with, and doesn't clamp down until you give it a couple of seconds. So very, very, very key. You got to be sure to give it a few seconds. So I'm working along the bank, and I'm staying real close to cover, and I'm, just gonna burn the bank is all I'm gonna do. And if I get blown up on and miss a fish, I'm not gonna throw it right back with the topwater. I'm gonna pick up something like a shaky head or a floating worm or a Cinco or something and throw it right back in there. You know the fish is there, you know it's turned on, throw something in there that's easier for it to eat, and you'll catch that fish. And then once you get bit, also know that there's, it lets you know that there's fish in that area. So try different lures. Go to a jig, go to a Cinco, go to something else, especially if you think there's a large concentration of fish. The most aggressive ones, and the ones that are shallow and feeding, are gonna be the ones that hit the topwater bait. So be sure to slow down and catch the ones that aren't quite so aggressive. A lot of times those are the bigger ones. All right, so the next one is the Booyah Popper. Now, if you guys have been watching my videos for a while, you know that I don't really have a whole lot of confidence in poppers. I don't fish them very much, but I know that they catch fish, and I know how to fish them. I just don't fish them very often. So the way I'm fishing this popper is I've got it on a medium moderate action rod. It's kind of a longer one than I normally would use. I like to use a 7-foot, but this is a 7'3", 6.6 to 1 gear ratio reel, 15-pound monofilament. Once again, it's a topwater bait, so you're gonna wanna have a floating line, monofilament or braid. And then you just, trying to figure out what cadence the fish want. It's funny, sometimes bass, they get in weird or different moods. Sometimes they want a popper or a topwater or any bait that you jerk around. They want it fast. Sometimes they want it slow. Sometimes they want a 3-second pause or a 5-second pause. And a lot of times it's just because they're coming at it, and then they're taking a good look at it. And if you pull it away from them real quick, they'll come at it again, and eventually they're gonna either decide to bite it or they're gonna decide to turn away from it. And your goal is to try to figure out how to trigger that bite, how they want it. And a popper is an ideal bait for doing that. That's the one thing I don't like about poppers, is they get hung around the front treble. But I'm throwing it right up against the bank. I'm popping it fast. I'm stopping it, and I'm just trying to figure out what kind of mood the fish are in. Typically, when you got water temperatures in the 70s, the bass are really in a happy mood. They really want to move, and they're willing to really attack a bait that's moving really quick in the water column or up in the water. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking it right now, is that I'm going to do quick pops, like pop, 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 pause, pop, 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 pause, and I'm going to do change my cadence up until the bass tell me something different. But I really think that if I do it that way, I'm liable to get a good blow up. Now, a question I get a lot is, when is the best time to fish topwater? Really low light conditions typically on most lakes, early in the morning, late in the afternoon, cloudy skies like we have right now. But I always say when the bass are shallow and active, you can fish topwater. I've been on lakes where the best topwater days were sunny bluebird skies, middle of the day, just no rhyme or reason why the bass were up there, but they were up shallow and they were feeding, and I was throwing them topwater. It's just one of those things. And with a popper, some of the best places to throw it is around sparse cover. It's a treble hook bait, so it gets hung up a lot. So if you make a good accurate cast around, you know, a tree or around some stick ups or, you know, grass or whatever, you'll you run a good chance of getting a good bite. But you're trying to imitate those small bait fish, those easy to eat fish, and trying to imitate one that's being chased or one that's running away, and it really does trigger those really good bites. You catch a lot of fish on one, that's for sure. I just don't fish it very often. You know, but just like the Sammie, it's critical once you get bit to count 2 or 3 seconds. If I get bit, I'm like 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then I just set the hook. You know, a lot of guys have to count 3 seconds for some reason. I don't know, but maybe they count faster. But it's critical to keep that in your mind, really critical. Now, when you're fishing topwater, and this goes for anything, topwater, frogs, anything, you're really looking for clues on the water that tell you whether a bass or whether the fish are active, shallow feeding, and they're willing to hit a topwater bait. I look for little ticks of bait fish. Are the bait fish shallow? Are the bluegill shallow? Or, you know, I'm just looking for signs. The more activity you see on the surface, the better the topwater bite's going to be. Today, I don't see hardly anything. I see some turtles coming up, but that don't mean jack squat. So I don't think topwater is going to be the deal right now. Sometimes it is. It never hurts to try it, but I don't try it for long when there's not a whole lot of action and activity on the top. And it usually means that the bass are in a bottom feeding mood, or they're just not going to come up top. They're going to try to feed on something a little bit deeper. So I'm going to tie on that Lucky Shad. We're going to talk about it. Let's see what happens. All right, so the Strike King Lucky Shad. I mean, what's the first thing you notice on this bait? It's got that big old long bill that's almost the same length as the body. And so it's going to dive fairly deep. This one dives 6 to 8 feet deep on a 12-pound test, and I've got 12-pound test fluorocarbon on there. But this bait really shines in the fall. When the bass are feeding up, it's got an action that the bass just love in the fall. Caught a ton of fish last year on it. But I really think it'll work good right now because it is in the shad pattern. It is fairly small. It's just a good looking bait, and it gets down to a little bit deeper than the topwater I was just using. And so that's why I'm going to try it out. And it's still, you know, it's still a moving bait. It's still one of those baits where I can cover a lot of water with. So I'm just going to throw it around a little bit, talk a little bit about it. I'm fishing it on 12-pound test fluorocarbon. This is a 7-foot moderate action rod. It's the new fake chrome crankbait rod. Absolutely, they finally got some good crankbait rods. But I've got it on a 7:3 to 1 gear ratio reel, so I can cover a lot of water with it. A 6:6 to 1 would work too. I just don't have it on this rod. It's the ideal setup for a really lightweight crankbait like this, especially the moderate action rod. 7-foot moderate is one that they designed for the what is it? The Rapala Shad Rap number 5 that I love to fish so much. But I want you guys to notice how I'm reeling this thing. I'm paralleling the bank as much as I possibly can. So I got the boat really close to the bank. I'm in deep water, ledge, you know, steep bluff walls. And I'm paralleling the bank, but I'm not just casting out and reeling it in at the same pace. I'm changing my pace and changing the speed of the bait. And if I bump something, I stop and I kill it. And I let it float back up. And a lot of times when you bump something, let it float back up into a bass's mouth, they can't, you know, or into a bass's face, they can't help but to open up their mouth. So I'm gonna fish this thing along the bank. Biggest thing about any kind of crankbait is you've got to bounce it off of something or change the speed or the direction. That direction change is critical in getting those reaction strikes. You know, you get a lot of these companies that want to put scent on crankbaits, or you know, want to make them super realistic, when absolutely, when you're fishing most crankbait conditions, it's just all about the bounce, and you got to look a little bit like the prey that they're feeding on. And there are times where it's critical and you really need a good one, but very rarely. So I'm casting real close to the bank, because 6 to 8 feet is right next to the bank, and I want to bump as much stuff as I can. If I'm not bumping, I'm just going to change, may pop my rod a little bit, You know, with this bait, you really got to be careful popping your rod because of the shape of it. It tends to roll around and it'll catch, the line will catch on the trebles. But most crankbaits you can do that. And as I bump stuff, I slow down or I stop. And I make it look like a bait fish is feeding on the bottom, okay? We may go to a different part of the lake if I don't catch one in the next few yards. So out of all the baits in the mystery tackle box, this is the one I have the most confidence in right now, just due to the conditions. Cloudy skies, the bass are gonna be, woo, I thought that was a bite. I think I hit the edge, tip of that tree. Nope, that was a bite, but it wasn't a bass. It chased it. But just because of the conditions, overcast skies, bass are scattered. They're shallow because the water's got a really muddy color to it. And so I just think that this one will be the better out of everything that's in the box. So I'm gonna fish it for a little bit. There's one right there. Boy, that's a big one too. Boy, I never felt that bite. Told you I had confidence in this thing. Maybe it's a turtle. I might have caught a turtle because it's acting like one. Whatever it is, it's big. I just want to see it. Look at that rod. It is not acting like a bass. I may never get this thing back. Golly, this sucks. I know it's not a bass. I just want my bait back. Gonna be a while. Oh, 12-pound test of Braze X. Let's see if I can get this freaking bait back. I don't care about the 45-pound carp I have on the other end, but it'd be pretty cool to get it in. Oh, I was right. First time was a big old freaking turtle. This is gonna be a challenge. About a 25-pound turtle. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bring him up and cut the hooks. And I'm gonna cut them real careful as to where, even though if they stay in him, he'll still be able to eat and feed and swim around. So first I'm gonna do is the one close to his mouth. Okay, I got that one. All right, now let's get the one that's in his arm. I might be able to pop that one out with my forceps. Got him. Whew, I'm gonna have to change travels now. That was a big turtle. Whew. Whew. All right, so I changed out the treble hooks. Matter of fact, I had to change out one of the split rings too because it was all torqued and bent up, but changed it to some Mustad KVD short shank, whatever they call them, triple grip hooks. So it's the ones I love to change out to. But with Strike King cranks, I typically don't change out the hooks until they need it. They come pretty sticky sharp. All right, let's try not to catch a turtle again. That was no fun. I'm wore out. The sun's coming out too. All right, so I lost my shallow water bite, I think. I'm just not getting anything in the this morning. So I moved out to some offshore structure, cover, whatever you want to call it. Big old rock pile. I'm gonna crank this rock pile a little bit, see if I can't get bit. Just do a little searching. All right. I don't know, I'm gonna try one more place, see what happens. All right, so the next one I'm gonna do, may end up being the last one I'm gonna do because I can't figure where the fish are at. I'm in the right place, there's tons of bait fish, just can't get bit. I'm getting frustrated. So anyway, it's called the Smart Bomb from Smart Baits. It changes color with temperature change. Pretty cool little deal. So right now it's blood red because it's been in the water. When it gets cold, it's blood red. It warms up. It'll actually turn a chartreuse. Put it in my hand for a little bit. I don't know if that really means anything, but anyway, you can see that it's kind of changing color. It might take a little while for it in my hand, but trust me, it turns chartreuse. So I put it on a Carolina rig, mainly because that's usually what I go to last on this lake when I'm not getting a bite, because these bass will get out. There's huge flats on this lake, and the bass will get out on those flats, and they're hard to cover when the bass aren't hitting crankbaits or hitting moving baits. So basically what I'm gonna do is just drag a Carolina rig like I always do on flats like that, and see if I can't get bit. All right, so basically how you rig a Carolina rig is you have about a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce. Usually people use the egg sinkers. I like these little cylindrical tungsten weights that nobody makes anymore. I've had them for several years. I bought as many as I could when True Tungsten went out of business. My favorite Carolina rig weight: a bead, a Carolina keeper, and if you're interested in all this and exactly how to rig it up, I'll put a link to a video up top. And then an EWG hook. This is a Mustad grip pen EWG, and then the little stick bait. Now, this is my favorite way to fish a Senko, to be honest with you. Any kind of a stick bait like that, I love to put it on a Carolina rig. I just have a whole lot of confidence in it, and the bass seem to like it too. But like I said, I'm covering these flats on this lake. I'm trying to figure out what depth the fish are at, what they're holding on. They're just not where they're supposed to be, or where I, in my mind, think they're supposed to be. So I'm just going to cover a lot of water with it as much as I can. See if I can't get bit. Now with a Carolina rig, you can literally throw any soft plastics you want to onto a Carolina rig and it'll catch fish. It's all about what you've got confidence in. I've thrown flukes on there, I've thrown creature baits, lizards, trick worms, finesse worms, it doesn't matter. I've thrown it all on there and they all catch fish. But like I said, one of my favorite baits is a stick bait on a Carolina rig. You throw it out and make good long casts. You're covering an area slowly because the fish are not wanting to chase. Another good thing to do this with is a jig, but you can actually fish a Carolina rig a lot faster than a jig, so that's kind of why I go to it. And you just drag it back. You want to keep contact with the bottom as much as possible when there's no grass or anything else on the bottom. If you're fishing grass, I tend to pop the weight up out of the grass, and that brings the lure behind it and lets it fall back down on top of the grass. My favorite length of leader is about 18 to 20 inches. I'll go longer if I'm fishing grass. I'll go shorter if I'm fishing nothing. So I don't ever get a tape measure out and measure it. I just kind of eyeball it. But you're just dragging it along. And if you're dragging it through on hard bottom or you're dragging it on the bottom, just drag it off to the side. And the key thing with a Carolina rig is to set the hook to the side. It's a sweeping hook set. Point the rod, take a couple of turns, point the rod at the bait, and pull hard, and just, you know, and the reason is because that sinker is way up in front of that bait, and if you set the hook over your head, it pops that sinker up, and you don't get nearly the power behind that hook set, and a lot of times that hook will pop right out of the fish's mouth. I'm fishing this on a 7.6 medium heavy, nope, 7.5 medium heavy, which is 7.5, 7.6, 7.8 are the ones I really like to fish a Carolina rig on. High speed reel so I can get it back to me fast and make another cast. So it's an 8:1 gear ratio reel. 20-pound test fluorocarbon. It catches big fish, and I always get it into the freaking thickest cover anyway. You can probably get away with 15, but I like 20. And I like fluorocarbon because it has a little stretch and it's virtually invisible underwater. but it has very little stretch on the hook set, so you can get a really good hook set on those long casts, because this thing casts a mile. I almost cast the spool out every time, so it's just one of those things. And I love to feel hard bottom. Right now I'm dragging and I feel ta-dunk, ta-dunk, and it's just rock after rock after rock, and typically that's where the fish are going to be. They haven't been anywhere this morning though. It's just a drag and stop, and my goal is to keep that sinker on the bottom. And that sinker hitting that bead makes a lot of noise, and it really isn't attractive to the fish. They come over and they check it out, and all of a sudden this nice little stick bait just comes swimming on by them, and they pick it up and eat it. Now, one thing that a Carolina rig is bad for, if you're not experienced with it, is gut hooking fish. So when you get bit, when you feel that tump or you feel that fish swimming off with it, go ahead and set the hook as soon as you can. You don't have to be in like a real quick snap hook set, but just set the hook as soon as you can. Because if you don't feel that fish on there, and that's mainly why I keep it moving a lot, so I can feel every bite. But if you don't feel that fish on there, he's going to get that thing all the way in his gut before you get that hook set. So be real careful, and that's why I don't fish it super slow. I tend to drag it fairly fast so I can feel every bite and try to keep that line as tight as I can while I do it. May not be the most effective way, but I hate to gut hook a fish. Guys, I may have to call this early. Daggum, I want to catch a fish. Fish aren't biting. The thunderstorm's coming in. They should be biting, but it is what it is. That's fishing. They don't read the books. They don't know the rules. So, but I'm gonna try to fish just a little bit longer. But as soon as I hear thunder, I'm out of here. Other ways you can fish this stick bait, of course, wacky style, Texas rig, weightless, whatever. I've got a couple of videos, and I'll put a link right here about them that show the different ways to rig a stick bait or a Senko style bait. And you guys can go watch those and really get a good idea of the different ways you can rig this little thing. And it's very, very versatile soft plastic. Oh, goodness. All right, guys, I'm not going to play with thunderstorms, but you know, check out Mystery Tackle Box. I'm going to leave a link down in the description you guys can click to. You get your first box for $4.99, your very first box you've ever gotten. I'll put the code up here, but go check them out. Great way to figure out new baits. The Pro Box is incredible. It always has good baits in it. But like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water, go out and catch some fish, and have a great day. I'm out of here.